My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27 years old, and the worst thing my father ever said about me, he said while holding a champagne glass at my own wedding. "Careful, Daniel," he told my husband in front of 200 guests. "My daughter learned from the best. She knows how to marry for money." The room didn't gasp. It didn't shout. It just froze. You know that moment when laughter dies halfway in someone's throat? When the music is still playing but nobody is moving? That moment. My mother's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. My grandmother stared at the table like she was trying to hold herself together. And me? I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply stood up, walked across the reception hall in my wedding dress, and pressed play on a recording that had been sitting in my phone for almost a year. What happened next destroyed my father's reputation in less than 3 minutes. But to understand why I did that, you have to go back 13 years. Back to the night my mom and I left our house with 2 suitcases and nowhere to go. I was 14. It was a rainy Tuesday night. I remember because my mom's shoes were still wet from work when she came into my room. She was a nurse. Night shifts, long hours, the kind of job that leaves exhaustion behind your eyes. "Pack a bag," she said quietly. No explanation, no warning, just those 2 words. I grabbed my backpack, a few clothes, my math textbook, the things teenagers think matter. What I didn't grab were the photos on the wall, the ones where my dad had his arm around me at the county fair. I thought we'd come back for them. We never did. My father stood at the top of the staircase when we walked out, arms crossed, silent. Then he said something that would echo in my head for years. "Take the ungrateful one with you." I was 14 years old. I'd never even broken curfew, but standing next to my mother made me guilty in his eyes. That was the night everything split in 2. My father kept the house, the neighborhood, the friends, the reputation. My mother and I kept each other. And that was it. We moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, the kind of place where the floor vibrates when the washing machines downstairs start spinning. My mom slept in the bedroom. I slept on a pull-out couch that squeaked every time I turned over. But she never complained. She worked double shifts, packed my lunches, still asked about my homework even when she could barely keep her eyes open. Meanwhile, my father was telling a completely different story. According to him, my mother had cheated. According to him, she ruined the marriage. According to him, he was the victim. People believed him. Church friends, neighbors, even relatives. I became the daughter who chose the wrong parent. At school, someone once asked me during lunch, "Didn't your dad say your mom broke the family?" I finished eating in the bathroom stall that day. After that, I stopped trying to defend us. I just focused on one thing: deading out. Scholarships became my escape plan. Every night I studied like my life depended on it, because honestly, it did. When the acceptance email finally arrived during senior year, full scholarship, my mom cried so hard she couldn't speak. I'd never seen her that proud. My father didn't know. He hadn't called me in almost a year. College changed everything. Not because it made life perfect, but because for the first time, nobody in the room already believed the worst about me. I studied literature, graduated with honors, became an English teacher at a public high school. The pay wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I drove an old car that rattled every time it started. I packed lunches in plastic containers, and slowly, life felt normal. Until I met Daniel. Daniel wasn't flashy. He didn't wear expensive watches or drive luxury cars. He was a quiet real estate attorney who read books during lunch breaks and laughed at terrible jokes. The first thing he noticed about me wasn't my looks. It was the stack of essays I was grading at a coffee shop. "You must really love your job," he said. And I did. We dated for 2 years. Slow, steady, calm. The kind of love that doesn't need fireworks because it already feels like home. When he proposed in our kitchen one Sunday morning, I said yes before he finished the question. Then I did something that now feels incredibly naive. I called my father. There was a long pause on the phone. Then he said, "I hope he knows what he's getting into." That was his version of congratulations. I tried to ignore it. I told myself maybe he'd change. Maybe weddings soften people. Maybe family means people eventually find their way back. I was wrong. A few months before the wedding, my aunt called me. She sounded nervous. "Emily, your dad has been telling people you're marrying for money." I laughed at first. It sounded ridiculous. Daniel and I split rent in a tiny apartment, but my father had always been good at storytelling. Soon, people were whispering, the same old label, gold digger, just like her mother. I wanted to confront him. Daniel stopped me. "Let him talk," he said, and I tried, until the day I found the recording. It was in a box at my mom's apartment while we were cleaning out old closets, a small USB drive, 3 minutes long. When I pressed play, my father's voice filled the room. He was talking to a woman named Claire, someone he'd been dating back then. In the recording, he casually explained how he'd hidden a house from the divorce settlement, how he'd transferred it into a company name so the court wouldn't see it. Then he laughed and said something that made my stomach drop. "Emily chose her mother anyway. Let them struggle." My mom didn't want to use it. She just wanted peace. But I kept a copy, just in case. And eventually, the case arrived. Which brings us back to my wedding. 3 hours into the reception, my father stood up to give his toast. At first, it sounded normal. Childhood memories, stories about teaching me to ride a bike. The audience smiled. Then his voice changed. He started talking about influences, about how some women teach their daughters the wrong values. And then he looked directly at me. "My daughter," he said slowly, "knows exactly how to marry for money." Silence. Complete silence. That's when I stood up. Not angry, not dramatic, just calm. I walked across the room in my wedding dress. 17 steps. I remember counting them. When I reached the DJ booth, I plugged in my phone. Then I spoke into the microphone. Since my father values honesty, I thought we'd hear some. And I pressed play. His own voice filled the speakers, confessing, laughing, admitting the fraud, calling his daughter ungrateful. You could feel the air leave the room. My father's face turned pale. When the recording ended, nobody clapped. Nobody spoke. Then a man stood up from table 6, Daniel's colleague, a lawyer. He walked over calmly and handed my father a legal envelope. "You've been served," he said. My father left the reception 10 minutes later. No goodbye, no explanation, just a quiet exit through the side door. And the strangest thing happened after that. The party continued. Music came back, people danced again, because the truth had already done its work. The lawsuit that followed lasted a few months. My mother eventually received half the value of the property my father had hidden. But the money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was something else. The story changed. For 14 years, people believed my father. One recording changed that. Today, my mom works as a nurse practitioner. My grandmother lives with her, and every Sunday we have dinner at a tiny kitchen table that barely fits 4 chairs. It's loud, messy, full of laughter. The kind of laughter that doesn't check the room first to see if it's safe. My father lives alone now. We don't speak. And strangely, that silence feels peaceful. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't forgiving someone. Sometimes it's closing the door they keep walking through just to hurt you. If you've ever had someone try to rewrite your story, remember this. Truth has patience. It might wait years, but eventually it speaks.